Hello and welcome to the first edition of the RotorHub International Podcast from this year's European Rotors 2025 here in Cologne. With me today is none other than Simon Tye. Simon is the Chief Commercial Officer of Avincis, the biggest helicopter company you've never heard of. Simon, thanks for spending the time with me today. Obviously, the run-up to a show is a very busy day, a lot of background hubbub in the halls already, but thanks for coming and joining me this morning.
Thanks very much, Gideon. Pleasure to be here. And yeah, there is a lot going on at the show today.
Simon, Avincis is this company which, I mean, even we'll come on to it in a moment, but even now is still expanding its wings. But let's just paint a picture of the backstory and the evolution of the company to date.
Sure, yeah. So, I mean, you started the podcast with those famous words from an interview I think you did with our CEO at the time, 𝗂𝗍𝗃, who said that we were Europe's largest emergency aerial services company that nobody had ever heard of, and that was back in 2024. Which, as I've said to you a few times, that was a good thing for us because we were going through a huge transformation of bringing together aspects of what was the previous company was Babcock Mission Critical Services. However, winding back a bit, like many companies, we've got quite a rich history going back to the 60s. The company was started in 65 in Spain, which is where it operated for quite a few decades. The big transformation came in 2003 with the creation of the 𝗂𝗃 Group, which was the merger of a number of local companies. And they basically went from strength to strength. They then caught the attention of some private equity investors, the Invest Industrial Group, who then created World Helicopter Group back in 2005. And the company really then started to take off with a global footprint going into the Italian, South American markets, Northern European. In 2011, there was a further acquisition of the Bond Aviation Group. And the company was then rebranded as Avincis, something that we affectionately call Avincis One. There was further expansion then into more countries in Northern European areas of Norway. And then the company was acquired in 2014 by the Babcock Group and rebranded Mission Critical Services. From there on, further expansion happened into Mozambique, Sweden, and then in 2023, the Ancala Group purchased some aspects of the Babcock Group to create now the new Avincis. And from 23 until 24, when you had the interview with John, we went through the transformation of bringing together the Iberian, Italian, and Northern European for Norway, Spain, and Finland together under the Avincis banner. We kept our operations in Mozambique and then obviously used the counter-season firefighting work that we had in Chile as well. So we were operating across three continents. As you can imagine, it's been quite a journey now with that cultural integration and that transformation, which is a role that most of the senior leadership within Avincis still perform today. We've got 6 major product lines within the organization. And our latest addition is obviously in the offshore energy with the addition of KN helicopters, which we see as a huge growth area.
Just zero in on 2 things there. First of all, the idea of bringing together, I mean, you just setting aside company cultures, the cultures of, in Spain, Italy versus Northern Europe and the Nordics, drawing together all those sort of disparate activities. Clearly that would have presented some challenges.
Absolutely. I think one of the big aspects was standardization. And there were a lot of great things going on in all of the respective areas is how do we, as a company, get best practice from that, find efficiencies, enhance safety protocols, and then give best value to the customer at the end of the day. which is obviously comes across from our training structures, from our fleet utilization, and then working with the local teams to knowledge share.
Yeah, and then you've already mentioned it, but the acquisition, or it was announced, wasn't it, about 3 weeks ago, 4 weeks ago, of KN Helicopters, and that move into that part of the offshore energy support area, the support of offshore wind. Just walk me through. I mean, offshore wind, growing segment, clearly. What are your ambitions there?
So we looked at the offshore energy and the support to the offshore wind market for a while, and it kind of begged the question: is as you can grow the company organically or inorganically, and KN seemed to be a perfect fit for us. They're a fantastic company, very strong safety record, very strong management team, very well respected by their clients. In an area that some of the management had previous experience operating in the Danish sector and surrounding sectors. So it was a natural fit for us. The intention with KN is because they're hugely respected in that area. There's not a lot really for us to change. We're going to support them in their growth activity with fleet, people, and find efficiencies where we can for them. But they will be effectively left as an entity, and we will support them from the wider Avincis Group.
So it's almost like an organic expansion by acquisition, almost. But that kind of that wind sector thing, it is interesting how it's growing. As those companies are beginning to dial into the idea that surface transport support does have its limitations, and it doesn't take much of a sea state before you can't actually get on or off the individual windmills, I guess. But let's think a little bit now about some of the challenges out there. Everyone you talk to, well, we will all wax lyrical about the challenges of supply chain in terms of material. But I want to talk a little bit more about the human side of the coin, the growing shortage of pilots, the growing shortage of licensed engineers, and those sort of challenges. How acute is it for you as we are now, or how do you see it progressing as a problem, ebbing, flowing?
Yeah, this is a long debated subject and not unique to Avincis. I think it's well known that there is a shortage of skilled labour in the market. We saw a huge impact due to COVID and the post-pandemic recovery, where people retired a lot of people retired from the industry, both pilots and engineers, didn't come back into the market when we saw rapid growth in the post-pandemic world. I think the aging labour force as well is an issue, and has we could see it coming. There is also now, I think, with the shortage of labour as well, we're seeing a lot of migration between companies as there is this sort of scramble with contracts, and certainly with government contracts, some of the oil and gas contracts as well. And the risk that we've identified was that is obviously we're spending and investing a lot of money in recruiting people, training them on types, etc. And then retention is the issue. As more attractive compensation packages come up from in different parts of the world, there is that ebb and flow. And when you're trying to create a culture and a safety standard within an organization, and not just ours, all of the helicopter companies and some of the fixed wing companies that we compete against, we all have the same issue. It's trying to maintain your workforce, maintain your standards, and deliver to the customer.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it is that thing. It isn't just that it's hitting that retention point. As you say, the idea of there's an expense to hiring, there's an expense to obviously rating pilots or engineers, and then there comes up to the retention issue. I mean, do you see a scenario where tools like, sort of signing on or retention, bonding issues as part of a contract, for in exchange for ratings, or is the job market just too competitive for that?
It is very competitive for that. Yeah, there are a number of tools out there you could use. Some of them have been more successful than others. I think it's about, attracting people for, or one of the aspects is what sort of company culture do you have? What sort of opportunities can you give your workforce, your staff? Those are now as attractive as salary packages are. So it's if you're giving continuity of work, or you're observing family aspects for staff. Is a rotation something to look at? There's many different aspects to it. It's a hugely complex issue, which some operators are more successful than others at achieving it and retaining their staff.
Yeah, I mean, how much do you think might be an added benefit to where you have quite a diverse operation in terms of tasking? That having that within your portfolio, do you think that might actually be a benefit, or a tool being able to offer? Because sometimes you get a thing where someone's a bit bored of doing this particular type of flying and wants to try something else, or is more dialed into flying a different style of work, or wants to try different shift patterning or things like that. And do you think that's an element that comes into it as well, or
It's finding that balance, because I mean, flying in search and rescue versus HEMS versus firefighting, they're very different skill sets at the end of the day. And the other aspect of this is the experience level. Some of our clients demand huge experience levels from crews, both pilots, technical crew, and from the engineering technician workforce. So if we are looking to transfer people between disciplines, obviously that's an investment, it's a cost. It's certainly attractive from a retention point of view for staff. But again, it takes time to build up the experience within all of these. Also, if we have people retiring, we have to try and get ahead of the game here, because it's not a case of one out, one in. If you're bringing somebody new into a discipline, whether it's search and rescue or HEMS, you have to be thinking a good 9 months ahead of when somebody is going to be retiring. You can plan that for retirees. You can't plan for that when people decide that they want to go and work for another operator or somewhere else.
And that's those sort of the known knowns and the known unknowns, I guess, to paraphrase. So.
It's again, and we've spoken about it before. It's a loyalty thing. If you are going to be bringing in or offering sponsorships, for example, there are opportunities out there for sponsorships. You're getting somebody or a group of people young in their relative careers. They sign up to how you are going to sponsor them, and what sort of work you're going to offer them, whether it be flying the heavy 225 aircraft that we have, or 139s, 169s, those kind of machines. That's attractive to somebody in their late teens, early 20s. Create that value brand, that loyalty with them, and then opportunity as well to build a career, respecting that at some point they're probably going to want to be in a fixed area for more sort of family security. If you can give them that path, that is kind of where we're aiming to give that sort of security to our staff.
Just thinking about, I mean, moving away a little bit from the personnel side of things, but something that just sort of popped into my mind thinking about things like seasonality. And I mean, obviously, a very large chunk of your operation is that aerial firefighting stuff, both rotary and fixed wing. Do you see a change, the traditional seasonality of aerial firefighting in Northern Hemisphere versus Southern Hemisphere seasons, that downtime, things changing? I mean, we've seen in the last year, for example, the US West Coast of enormous fires in January, hitherto sort of things unheard of. Do you see changes in that traditional seasonality of aerial firefighting? Is that moving away? And what do you think might be strategies to meet that challenge?
Yeah, and undoubtedly the things are changing again within the firefighting market. In fact, very shortly we're hosting a discussion panel with industry leaders to work through some of these challenges, not just for us, but for the industry. This is kind of bigger than any of us, with the impact that the terrible fires that occur most summers, and as you point out, now out with that traditional seasonality. The Palisades fires in LA, South Korea, we saw the same sorts of things. Planning from a logistical point of view, from a commercial point of view, is very difficult. And we're now trying to get that across. And I think a lot of our clients are actually seeing it as well, where the contracts that were traditionally let, where there were short periods in the summer season, they now have to be extended, which then actually stops you from having that counter season opportunity, by the most part, not always, but and that is a trend that I think is only going to get more challenging. So how do we plan for that? Well, we're insisting or trying to push our clients to having longer term contracts where we can invest. You have dedicated aircraft, you have dedicated staff for 3 to 5 year periods, rather than just that seasonality piece.
Yeah, it's changing from that ad hoc, well, this is the contract for this year for 3 months or whatever, to, as you say, something more stable. Thinking of things that are stable is the clock. And for us, I'm afraid the clock is running out. Simon, it's been, as always, enlightening. Thanks very much for spending the time with us, and enjoy the show.
Thank you very much, Gideon. Pleasure.
That's been the first of our European Rotors podcasts, live from Cologne. Join us again tomorrow with more news from the show and the industry.